For John, I wanted to ask this a couple of years ago, but I kind of Andrew Lincolned out. I'm over here, right here. Hi. I think we'd all agree that the special effects in American Werewolf in London hold up to this day. And I'm curious how you feel about directors going back to old films like Spielberg with E.T. and Lucas with basically every movie he's ever done, going back and redoing the special effects. And were you ever tempted to go back and do that with any of your films?
Well, first of all, they wouldn't let me, so
Yeah.
that's different. George owns his movies, so he can do what he wants. But that was totally not where I thought you were going. I thought you were going like practical versus CG, and I had this great answer. But then
But tell the story you told me backstage about the scene with the bums that you...
no.
Don't tell it.
No, you know what? No, because
That was a terrible story anyway.
it's not to the point. But no, I actually think that my personal opinion is that George hurt his movies by doing what he did. However, George said to me, "But they're my movies," and I thought, well, that's fair. However, did you know Disney, by the way, is putting out the original Star Wars the way it was and stuff? So
I didn't know that.
yeah. So they're like money on the floor, you know.
I think they're like 30 miles from here, by the way.
We're on a 7-second delay, right, on the live stream? 7-second delay?
We're live to the word, yeah.
Cool. So let's go ahead and hit that a
Wait,
couple times.
I like Universal, like, we're not. The truth is that, yeah, if I could, I don't think I've ever made a great film. I've made very successful films, and I've made some films I like more than others. In all my movies, there are things I like in them. But for instance, Coming to America is a movie I made with Eddie Murphy. And Coming to America is the fastest movie ever made. From the day they said you got what's called a green light, to the day it opened in theaters was less than 6 months. And I might add, there was no script when we got a green light. And I've made 2 movies that way, where both with Paramount for one and Universal for Blues Brothers, where they say, same thing. Can you have this movie in theaters by August? And you always say yes. You know why? Because it means no budget. Because you're in production. So that's, you know, so I was able to, like Coming to America, there's a big dance number because I could, you know, like, you know, and I was on the Blues Brothers, there's a famous moment where we're in Chicago shooting, and Ned Tannen, the head of production of Universal at the time, came out with this thing, said that that's a $12 million movie. And Bob Weiss, the producer, looked at me and he said, we've spent more than $12 million. Anyway, Coming to America, because it was made so fast, we literally were cutting negative, scoring, and mixing during principal photography. And the day it opened in about 4,000 theaters was less than 3 weeks from the last day of shooting. So we were locking picture. And so it meant, one, I never had a preview. I mean, just boom, went out, because those were prints those days. You know, we had to give Technicolor 2 weeks to make all those prints. But the other thing is, that drives me crazy, that movie, because I think I like it, but I think it's too slow. I'd like to take maybe 15 minutes out of it, like speed it up, just just speed it up. So in fact, when it was going to be on Blu-ray, I asked Paramount, and I said, would I be able to do it? You know, they looked at it, I'll never forget. I won't tell you the man's name, but he said, "John, the movie's made over $600 million. No."